But what was the need of Pakistan in 1947? The need of Pakistan was that the Muslims wanted a separate homeland because they were insecure under a non-Muslim majority. They had amazing, I would say, foresight in being able to imagine that there would be a Modi and a Hindutva. Sometimes, or in fact on many occasions, over the last 70 years, many people have thought, we have also thought at times, skeptics in us, seeing India as a plural, tolerant, diverse population where there are Hindus, Sikhs, Parsis, Christians, Muslims, all living together, all accepting each other. And there would be naysayers who would say कि पता है खबर नहीं पाकिस्तान ना बनता तो हमारी हालात बेहतर होते. When we went to India for visits, we found our friends able to speak out whatever they were, came. There was more freedom. There were courts of law, far more independent than the courts of law in Pakistan. There was no judge in Indian history who has taken an oath under a provisional constitution order where there has been deviation from the constitution. And we thought that they were in some ways superior. But their inner gut individual has been brought out by Modi. And it would have been painful for them, for the Hindus of the subcontinent at least, to just imagine 1,000 years and you are the majority community, but you are ruled by a minority, by mostly an extraterritorial minority. All the old buildings, all the monuments, the great monuments like Taj Mahal, the huge fortresses like Akbar's Red Fort in Agra, the Red Fort in Delhi, the Old Fort in Delhi, Qutb Minar, you name it. They had been built by a minority ruling, because Muslims were succeeded by another minority, that is the British, the Englishmen. And the other monuments were built by the British, the huge railway bridges, the presidential viceroy's palace, the town planning, Lithium's India, Delhi, etc. So I can imagine the heart burning in the Hindu mind that they have not had what Modi is apparently giving them. Modi does an amazing job in creating hatred against the minorities and then having it actually actuated, if I use the word, the square word, from the title of the seminar itself. Now, the basic drive for Pakistan was to protect a minority. Now, that can be said to be the narrative of Pakistan. The main narrative of Pakistan is that the minorities must prosper, the minorities must be secure, and the minorities must have their freedom. Now, have we succeeded in that? We have not succeeded in that. Is there a Hindu you have met? When was it last time that you met a Hindu in Pakistan, in Lahore or in Islamabad, other than a non-resident Hindu, a Pakistani Hindu? We've ethnically cleansed them, effectively, at least from the Punjab. We have departed from that narrative. The narrative was the Muslims were in a minority and they wanted protection, so they created a state. And this was a legitimate purpose and a legitimate process. But it is not the narrative that we espouse and adhere to today. Today, Koli girls are kidnapped, forced to convert or to marry, and that is a practice that one cannot unfortunately even deny. Now, if the protection of the minority was the Grundnorm for Pakistan, then it was well stated by the Aitzaz Ahsan in his speech on the 11th of August 1947. That must be the Grundnorm speech of the Aitzaz Ahsan. It cannot be anything else. They come up with, when you quote from the speech of 11th of August 1947, the naysayers come up with his address to on the radio to the people of Australia, his address to the people of America, the Qaed's remark to a media man as he was passing an ear that our constitution is 1400 years old. And you try to turn that narrative into a extraterritorial narrative. As I said, if the history of Pakistan started from Saudi Arabia and then went to Damascus and then came to Pakistan, this is an extraterritorial narrative. It may be a narrative of a region, the Islamic region, and if taken like that, it may be fulfilling a need of the people living Neel ke sahil se lekar Taba Kha ke Kashgar. But they don't need it. All the Muslims put together don't need it. They won't have it. They are different states. It is not one region in which you can go around without a passport, without a visa. There are 50 odd different Muslim states. So, can it be that the narrative of Pakistan is a narrative that is common from Morocco to Indonesia and from Sudan to Kashgar? I would say not. Much as we are prepared to take on the robes of a narrative that do not fit us. First, we Arabized our narrative. Let me give you an example. I'll give you an example. In 1966, Christmas days, I was in England, in university, and my roommate said, when Christmas was coming, that Cambridge goes dead and there'll be snow and winter, so why don't you come and stay with us, with my parents? I went along. As we sat down to dinner on the first day, 1966, my friend's mother, we were sitting down on a table, being served by serfs, and I was sitting across with Bernard Palmer's mother, and she says to me, "Son, where are you from?" I said, "From Pakistan, Auntie." She said, "Where is Pakistan?" Can you imagine that there was a time when people didn't know where Pakistan was? Today, everybody's great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother knows where Pakistan is. But she didn't know. So I explained, I said, it's on the north-east of India and northwest of India. Oh, she said, "Oh, you're the people who broke away from India." I said, "Auntie, yes." "Why did you break up from India?" I said, "Because we were not Indians." She said, "You're not Indians? Then who are you?" I said, "We were not Indians, Auntie." She said, "Darling, that we have settled. You're not Indians, but you must be somebody. Who's that?" So I was in a spin, in a dizzy. I stuttered. We happened to be Muslims. She said, "Aren't there any Muslims in India?" I said, "Yes, they are." "Are they all Pakistani?" I said, "No, none of them is a Pakistani." "So you can be a Muslim and not be a Pakistani? So who is a Pakistani?" I said, "We were Arabs." She said, "Do you speak Arabics?" I said, "No." She said, "You can't be an Arab." At this, Sir Palmer, the husband, he got so frustrated, he said, "Beatrice, stop badgering this young man. He's come as a guest to your house and you're badgering him like that. Come on, Aitzaz, eat your food, and change the subject." Now, where are we? We are un-Indians. It's all we have to say for ourselves. That is when this strong question continued to live in until I got the layer of reflecting more with a greater focus on this issue, who am I? When Ziaul started putting me in jail, one jail term, then another, then a third, and about a dozen, and I would read and think of what am I. And I came to the conclusion that Pakistan has pre-existed Islam. Rivers, among other geographical features, sire and sustain civilizations. If a set of rivers, the Indus Valley rivers, are flowing from the north to the west, and another set from the north to the east, they will produce different civilizations. Both can have a lot in common, both can have great admiration for each other, both can gel, both can survive together, coexist. increase their productivity and their efficiency by and their mental capacities by the coexistence. But I can't say that Oxus is mine or the Nile is mine. Nile is Egyptian, and the Egyptians are proud of their river. We are the Indus people, and we must have a narrative that is an Indus narrative. We can't have an entirely extraterritorial existence. Now, as I said, I may briefly repeat that to make another point. The Quaid-e-Azam's statement, his speech on 11th of August 1947, was the Grundnorm speech about the narrative of Pakistan. And if that is taken as the narrative of Pakistan, then good enough by me. But he basically spoke there of the need for Pakistan. The narrative provides the need and must match the need. And the need for Pakistan was to defend and protect a minority of the citizens of South Asia. And the Quaid-e-Azam said, you are free to go to your temples, your churches, or other mosques, or any other places of worship. Class, religion, creed have nothing to do with the business of the state. If that is the narrative, that is the narrative that the Pakistani people followed and pursued. But we have discarded that narrative. Today, the narrative is not just that we are Islam and Muslims, not just that we are bound to remain Muslim, not just that we must believe in everything that any one sect of Islam says, we must believe it. मेरी मुट्ठी में जो कुछ है उस पर ईमान लाओ, चाहे मुट्ठी खाली हो, वरना तुम वाजिबुल कत्ल हो. ये कैसा पाकिस्तान बन गया है? It has morphed. The narrative that has been adopted is are 17 sects and 70 narratives. So, why Quaid-e-Azam speech? और कभी ये किसी को ना कहने दीजिएगा कि जी Quaid-e-Azam की तकरीर, Quaid-e-Azam ने तो किसी और वक्त में कुछ और कहा था, किसी और वक्त में कुछ और कहा था. Here the Quaid was speaking, and there are two significant elements to this. Why this is the Grundnorm speech. One, he was speaking to a forum that was enjoined to draft the Constitution of Pakistan. It was not just a passing remark. He was talking to the Constituent Assembly of Pakistan. And he was talking, addressing it at what time? Look at the temporal and the spatial. The address is to the Constituent Assembly of Pakistan, and the time for the address is at the threshold of independence. The next step from 11th of August would be 14th of August in independent Pakistan. And had Quaid-e-Azam been alive long enough to give to this country a constitution, do you know who would have piloted the constitution in the National Assembly of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan? His Hindu law minister, Jagannath Mandal. Now we try to forget these facts, and we are keen to assume an extraterritorial personality. Somehow we are given to extraterritorials. The Arabization شروع ہو گئی, اتنی Arabization. ہمیں والدین کہا کرتے تھے خدا حافظ, اب آ گیا اللہ حافظ. وہ ایئرپورٹ پہ جہاز سے اتر رہے ہوں تو وہ جو ایئر ہوسٹس ہیں وہ کھڑی ہوئی, وہ بچی اکثر کہتی یار مسافر کو اللہ حافظ اللہ حافظ اللہ حافظ. کبھی کبھی میں رک کے ذرا پیچھے دور ہو مسافر تو میں اس کو کہتا ہوں بیٹی خدا حافظ. وہ کہتی ہے ایک آدمی کہا یہ تو خدا تو شرک ہے. وہ میں نے کہا یار یہ شرک کیوں اس طرح بنا لیتے ہو, ایک دم تو آپ کے قومی ترانے میں خدا ذوالجلال ہے. اقبال اللہ کو خدا کے لقب سے میں اس کا بندہ بنوں گا جس کو خدا کے بندوں سے پیار ہوگا. اب بار بار تو یہ کہاں سے ہم, اب یہ عربائزیشن ہے آف آور نیریٹو اینڈ آف آور پرسنالٹی, اور اس سے ہم اپنا کچھ کھو رہے ہیں. لیکن ہم بھی فراخ دل لوگ ہیں, بڑے دل کے لوگ ہیں. ہم نے عربی نیشنلٹی بھی اور نیریٹو بھی چھوڑ کے اب ہم ترکی کے ہو چلے. ارطغرل, عثمان, ہمارے ہیرو. ہمارا ہیرو تو پورس تھا, ہمارا ہیرو تو جسرت گکھڑ تھا, ہمارا ہیرو تو دلہ بھٹی تھا, ہمارا ہیرو تو احمد خان کھرم تھا, ہمارا ہیرو تو بھگت سنگھ تھا. کسی کتاب نصاب کی کتاب میں ان کا ذکر ہے؟ اگر ان کا ذکر نہیں ہے تو آپ کا کوئی نیریٹو میں نہیں تسلیم کرنے کو تیار کہ پاکستان کا کوئی نیریٹو ہے. ہم اپنے بچوں کو کیا پڑھا رہے ہیں؟ ہم اپنے بچوں کو پڑھا دیں کہ یہ آپ ایک سپیریئر قوم ہے, آپ اور آپ سے نسبت جس کی بھی ہے جس کو بھی ہے وہ ایک سپیریئر قوم ہے, اور ان کا دماغ خراب کر رہے ہیں ہم اس طرح. ایک سینس آف فالس سپیریورٹی ہم ان کو دے رہے ہیں. اور اینڈ the textbooks as they have come out in the single national syllabus are atrocious. پاکستان فیکٹس میں جانے کے علاوہ یہ ایکسکلوسیوٹی کے ساتھ جب آپ بات کریں گے, جب پاکستانی صرف وہی ہوگا اور ٹیکسٹ بک سے یہ تاثر ملے گا کیونکہ کلمہ طیبہ ہے اس میں, وید نہیں ہے کوئی, انجیل کی کوئی اس کو کیا کہتے ہیں شاید ورس انجیل کا کوئی ورس نہیں ہے, کیونکہ وہ سٹیزنز نہیں ہیں جو ہمارے اسلام کے پیروکار نہیں ہیں. ان کو ہم فل سٹیزن شپ دینے کو تیار ہیں, اور سنگل سلیبس سے وہ اور زیادہ ایکسکلوڈ ہو گئے. So we are excluding and ایک زمانہ تھا ارلی پاکستان ڈیز میں بھی ہندوؤں کے تہواروں میں مسلمان ہوتے تھے, مسلمانوں کے تہواروں میں وہ آ کے شریک ہوتے تھے, ٹھیک ہے وہ نماز ساتھ نہیں پڑھ سکتے تھے پر آپ کے لیے ہار لے کے باہر کھڑے ہوا کرتے تھے. ایسی ایسی داستانیں سنی ہیں ہم نے, اور بڑی دکھ اور درد سے ہمارے والدین ہمیں سناتے رہے کہ یہ یہاں تو اب معاشرہ ایسا تھا اور ایسا تھا, پر ہم نے وہ گنوا دیا. پاکستان کا نیریٹو اگر پلورالٹی, مختلف الانواع, پلورالٹی, ٹالرنس اور ڈائیورسٹی پہ نہیں کھڑا ہو تو پاکستان کا نیریٹو نہیں ہے. اور چونکہ یہاں پاکستان کا نیریٹو ان سب باتوں کی ضد ہے, اس لیے میں سمجھتا ہوں کہ یہاں پاکستان کا نیریٹو ہے ہی نہیں. اس کی ایک مثال میں آپ کو دے دوں چلتے چلتے. میں نے ذکر کیا پورس کا. پورس دریائے جیلم جو ہائیڈیسپیس کہلاتا ہے یونان میں اور یونانی میں زبان میں, جیلم دریا کے بائیں طرف, ہماری طرف جس طرف ہم کھڑے ہیں, نہیں سوری وہ تو رائٹ بینک, جیلم دریا کے دائیں طرف, میں اپنے آپ کو لاہور میں سمجھ رہا تھا, جیلم دریا کے رائٹ بینک پہ سکندر آ کے فوجیں لے کے کھڑا ہو گیا, اور وہ ساری اپنے رستے سے میں جدھر گیا وہ فتح یاب ہی ہوا. اب اس کی جنگ پورس سے ہوئی. پورس کی ریاست کا آغاز ہوتا تھا جیلم دریا ہائیڈیسپیس سے. تو the battle of Hydaspes, it took about 6 months for the armies to actually engage, اور اس زمانے کی جنگ ایک دن میں ختم ہو گئی. اور آج تک ہم یہ کہتے ہیں کہ پورس ہارا, سکندر جیتا. اگر if you go into historiography and you have to decide on the basis of historiography, principles of historiography, what was the result of a battle that you and I didn't see, that our parents didn't see, that their parents didn't see, that nobody who's written a script since the printing press has seen, nobody before or at the time when the language was there, scripts were actually being evolved, saw it. It's an ancient prehistoric war. And you have to decide who won. There are only 2 criterions to determine who won. The first is, after the battle, who was or remained the king of the ruler of the territory that came under attack. اگر وہ اٹیک نہ ہوتا تو جنگ ہی نہ ہوتی نا, پھر تو جنگ ہی نہ ہوتی. وہ اب سکندر نے اٹیک کیا تو جنگ ہوئی. جنگ کے بعد آپ اگر مہینہ بعد جنگ کے دیکھتے تو جس ریاست پہ جنگ ہوئی تھی اس کا بادشاہ تو بدستور پورس تھا. سو اس حوالے سے ہم یہ نتیجہ نکالتے ہیں کہ پورس جیتا, پورس نے سکندر کو شکست دی. دوسرا ایک اور پیمانہ ہے, اینڈ دا سیکنڈ ٹیسٹ از what route did the attacker take after the war? Did he go through the conquered, the defeated state, or did he change his route? Now, it is well known, and Porus's own historian, Alexander's own historians, Plutarch, Arrian, Diodorus, and there's the one with the sea, but own historians, and these are published works, translations which I have read and I have drawn from, say that after the battle, Porus, Alexander and his armies crossed the Hydaspes back, which means they were pushed back, and Alexander traveled on the right bank of the Indus, avoiding stepping into Porus's kingdom, went to Multan, then to the Panjnath, where the river was 14 miles wide. And there he crossed and went up to the Satluj and Beas, where his soldiers revolted. And they said, we are fed up, we can't keep traveling with you. And he had to return. And he died in Babylon from the wound of a bamboo arrow that had struck him in Multan. Now he changed he had to avoid the kingdom. So what is the result of the battle? Porus defeated Sikandar. But we have a different narrative. Our narrative is always with the invader, unfortunately. वो invader कोई हो, जसरत गखड़ कितना मुकाबला करे तैमूर का, पर तैमूर हमें कॉन्कर करने आ रहा है और हमारा हीरो है शाह तैमूर। नादिर शाह दिल्ली को ताराज करने आ रहा है, खून के दरिया बहाने आया, बट वो भी हमारा हीरो है, बर्बाद तबाह कर दिया। और अब पोरस और अलेक्जेंडर पे मैं सिर्फ एक बात के लिए दोनों ज़हन में रखिए, दोनों ये किस्सा और वाक़या इस्लाम के नुज़ूल से 1000 साल तकरीबन पहले का वाक़या है। ये प्री इस्लामिक नेम्स हैं, सिकंदर और पोरस। सिकंदर हम बच्चों का नाम रखते हैं, पोरस कोई नहीं रखता, पोरस कोई नहीं रखता। हालांकि पोरस डिफेंडेड in the battle of Hydaspes, the Punjab. And if we actually look at the resistance that Indus has provided, हम कहते हैं कि जी वो इंडस वाले, हम तो पंजाबी और ये सारे ये इंतज़ार कर रहे होते हैं कि कोई महमूद गजनी उधर से आए, कोई गौरी आए, कोई मुग़ल बाबर आए और ढोल बजाते हुए साथ चल के दिल्ली की तरफ चले जाए। कभी ऐसा नहीं हुआ, हर दफ़ा रेजिस्टेंस हुई है। नादिर शाह की वार में चप्पे पे उसको जंग लड़नी पड़ी है। बाबर 3 मरतबा आया, जिसके बारे में कुतुब रख नहीं लिखते, 3 मरतबा उसने ये पट्टी खैबर पख्तूनख्वा की और पंजाब की पास करने की कोशिश की, 3 मरतबा पसपा होकर वापस गया। 4थी मरतबा आया, पानीपत पहुंचते थे तो सारा हिंदुस्तान उनके आगे होता था। अब ये मैं फिर से अर्ज करूंगा कि पाकिस्तान का कोई नैरेटिव नहीं है। जो नैरेटिव हम स्कूलों में पढ़ाते हैं, जो घरों में पढ़ाते हैं, जो अपने बच्चों को पढ़ाते हैं, जो हम उनकी जिससे उनकी कैरेक्टर बिल्डिंग करना चाहते हैं, वो हमारे यहाँ के लोग उनकी मिसालें क्यों नहीं मिल सकती? दुल्ला भट्टी की क्यों नहीं मिल सकती? He forced Emperor Akbar to sign a Magna Carta. It was really a Magna Carta. पर कोई रिसर्च कोई कुछ नहीं करता. अलेक्जेंडर पे इतनी रिसर्च हो चुकी है कि जिसकी इंतहा नहीं है. और इसको बैटल ऑफ हाइडास्पीस को फाइनली आप से इजाज़त लेते हुए मैं ये कर दूं, इसको मैंने एक और तरह से एक्सप्लेन भी किया था. और वो मेरी एक गज़ल है जिसका मतलब है, वो बुत परस्त था लेकिन खुदा से डरता था. वो बुत परस्त था लेकिन खुदा से डरता था. अजीब शख्स था, हर इंतहा से डरता था. और उसमें अब कता नवा है ये पोरस और सिकंदर का, मैं एक्सप्लेन कर रही हूं. दरअसल पोरू ने पसपा किया सिकंदर को, दरअसल पोरू ने पसपा किया सिकंदर को. शहे सिपाह का मुअर्रख पे शाह से डरता था. गुजर सका ना वो गुजरात से कहीं आगे. सिपाह पोरू से और शाह सिपाह से डरता था. और आखिरी उसमें जो शेर है वो एक डरते हुए शौहर का शेर है बीवी के नाम के. तेरे अताब से डरता था एतजाज अहसन, वगरना ऐसा जवां किस बला से डरता था.
Thank you, sir, for a very interesting talk. The second speaker is Senator Javed Jabbar. He is a former senator and has served in 3 federal cabinets as Minister for Information and Broadcasting, Science and Technology, Petroleum and Natural Resources, and advisor to the Chief Executive of Pakistan on National Affairs. He is a prolific writer and has many books to his credit. His 15th book, Pathways, Selected Writings, 2010-2015, won the UBL Literature Prize for the Best English Non-Fiction book at the 9th Karachi Literature Festival 2017. His 16th book, What is Pakistaniyat, is prescribed in leading educational and training institutions. He is presently the chairman and co-founder of the Social Policy and Development Center, one of Asia's most reputed independent research centers and think tanks. I will now request Senator Jabbar to present his views on the elements of the national identity of Pakistan.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Brigadier Rashid Walijan Jua Sahab, thank you for your gracious invitation. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be here. My fellow distinguished speakers, Senator Mushahid Hussain, Senator Aitzaz Ahsan, and distinguished personalities in this gathering. I think we've been benefited since the very inception of this important conference. I think Mr. Moeed Yusuf set the tone with his extremely lucid elaboration of what strategic communication means to projecting the national narrative. And he was followed most ably by Senator Mushahid, who dwelt on the concept of soft power and how other countries have used that to develop their national narrative. And we have just heard an excellent exposition of history by Senator Aitzaz Ahsan, a sweeping panoramic survey of history. Most of his contentions I, of course, very enthusiastically endorse. Some I take the liberty of respectfully disagreeing with him, but I do not wish to convert this into an argumentative session because what binds us is much more important than what may not divide us, but may place us on different vantage points looking at the same phenomenon. The formulation of the conference is very intriguing. It's different because it uses the word actualization, and that's a very formidable task, to actualize something, to actualize something which actually already exists, like the concept of the ideology of Pakistan is used very loosely and freely. But there is no single document in 74 years of history that can be pointed to and said to be the ideology of Pakistan. There is no such document. There is no such agreed text. And yet, Nazariya-e-Pakistan, ideology of Pakistan, and then equating it with religion. Religion cannot be an ideology because an ideology is by nature dynamic, always vulnerable and open to change. Communism changed fundamentally when China changed economic communism and retained political communism. Capitalism has gone through so many phases of change. Religions, parts of it, do not change. Those are permanent pillars. Of course, through ijtihad, Islam is supposed to expand and develop the interpretation of principles according to new knowledge. So, when we talk of actualizing something, I am struck by the fact that we already have a narrative which is actualized by the way the people of Pakistan live their lives, whether in penury and poverty,